Okay guys, it's my first dessert video. I will share with you, I love making desserts. My father absolutely loved, forgive the bad hair day, but hey, it is Saturday. Loved my cherry pie, loved my apple pie, but one of my favorite things to make, and everybody thinks it's hard, it's really not hard. Like some of the other things I've done for you guys, you have to pay attention. So tonight, or this afternoon, we're gonna make creme brulee. It is not hard, it looks so impressive. I have fresh strawberries from California. So I'm gonna add those to the bottom of each of the ramekins, and I can't wait to show you how to do it. So what you see here is some superfine sugar, which dissolves easier, fresh strawberries, a quart of heavy cream or whipping cream, ramekins, a dozen eggs, and also what's important to see is that I have Madagascar vanilla beans. And so part of the deliciousness, if you will, of fresh creme brulee is that you have fresh vanilla bean seeds in the creme brulee. I also have a large pan. It's a roasting pan, lasagna pan, call it what you wish. Because when you make creme brulee, after you put the custard into the ramekins, you have to put the ramekins in water in the baking dish to cook them, bake them, if you will. It's custard. That's what you have to remember. It's really not hard, looks really impressive, and no one will know how easy it was for you to make. So I put the quart of heavy cream into my pan. I'm going to now add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and 3/4 of a cup of superfine sugar, baker's sugar. It's just a different kind of sugar that I always use when I'm baking. And the biggest challenge you have is as you get to this point, when you turn on the heat to heat the cream, when cream or any milk product gets too hot and boils, it's always going to boil over. So that's going to be your primary responsibility in making creme brulee, is to pay attention. Also, you see my dozen eggs are sitting out there. They need to be at room temperature. So the cream is creating a skin. I have it on just above medium. And now is the time I need to turn it down so it doesn't go too crazy. Otherwise, it literally would boil over and smell like marshmallows. So I've been watching it, and I just wanted to see the tiny simmer. And so we are ready to put in our vanilla bean. And while I was waiting for the cream to boil, I took these fresh strawberries, and nothing is more special than California strawberry season, and I sliced them up. So what's going to happen is I'm going to put these strawberries, slices of strawberries, in the bottom of the ramekins, and then the rest will be for people to snack on when I have my dinner party tomorrow. I'm hopeful you've all seen this, but if you haven't, this is what a vanilla bean looks like. It's what you get vanilla ice cream from. It's when you see the little tiny black dots in vanilla ice cream, it's from the seeds inside of the vanilla pod. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to slice open the vanilla pod, and then I'm going to scrape the vanilla beans, the seeds, if you will, into my cream mixture. And in order to get the very best flavor, I'm also going to keep the vanilla bean in the pan. You'll see the beans that are in there, the seeds, I should say. But you're also going to see the vanilla bean, and I'm going to let this sit for about 20 minutes so the vanilla goes into the cream. And I'm going to lick my fingers with all the vanilla tiny seeds that are on there. So when I say steep, the temperature's off, the cream is sitting, the vanilla is sitting in it, and what I'm also making sure happens is that the seeds that came out of the pod are separating. And as you can see, if you look closely, you're seeing little tiny black dots. That's what you want to see. What I also will tell you is that if I see clumps, if you will, clumps is a technical term, of seeds, I will separate them just by pushing them up against the pan and separating them. You need to let the cream sit because it's got to cool down, because when you add the egg, the cream can't be too hot or it literally will scramble the egg, and you don't want to have that happen. It will ruin your creme brulee. So I have a dozen egg yolks, and then I have my sliced peaches. And what will happen is I will add the cooled cream to the egg yolks. I'm going to blend the egg yolks. I'm not going to beat them too hard. We don't want to add air to the egg yolk. I tend to do this just with my own whisk. I don't add quite frankly, if you're using a hand mixer, it's going to put too much air into the eggs, and you don't want to have that happen. Also, what's hugely important is do not put the cream mixture into the eggs until it's cooled enough to not affect the eggs. I have a pitcher here, and I have some cheesecloth. So after I blended the cream mixture with the egg mixture, I'm going to pour that combination into this pitcher, put cheesecloth over the top, add a rubber band, that's what I use. And then that makes it easier to pour, but it also strains the creme brulee mixture, which is what you want to do to make it as smooth and creamy as possible. Guys, so I have blended my egg yolks, not a lot, because what's really important is you don't have too much air in the egg yolk. And now I have made sure that my cream mixture is not too hot. And now I'm going to gently add the cream mixture to the egg mixture while I am using my whisk. I tend to like this kind of whisk rather than the wire one. If you can see it, you can see the wonderful, absolutely exciting, wonderful, I can't wait to have vanilla seeds coming in. But you're also going to see some of the egg that needs to be strained out. So we now have this amazing blend of egg yolk and cream. And what will happen next is I'm going to put this into a strainer, into a pitcher with cheesecloth to strain it out. So you saw that I poured the egg mixture into a pitcher, but what I'm going to do now is put cheesecloth. Now, cheesecloth is one of those other things, especially if you want to bake, it has to be in your kitchen. So I'm going to put cheesecloth over this. I'm going to add a rubber band to hold the cheesecloth over the pitcher so that when I pour it into the ramekins, we're ready to go. So as you can see, I've put strawberries in the bottom of the ramekins, and I'm now going to pour from the pitcher the creme brulee mixture into the ramekins. The recipe calls for 10. I tend to overfill, so it makes it a better recipe, so there's only 9 here. I will also share with you what you have to be paying attention to is if you're not using ramekins like I am and you're using the shorter ones, kind of everything changes. You have to cook for less time and you have to allow for that. So I have all of the ramekins filled, and as you can see, I've added another ramekin that doesn't have strawberries. I had a little extra. And if somebody doesn't want strawberries, they can have that. And what's going to happen now, which is probably the most important thing to making great creme brulee, is adding water. You don't notice nothing is touching. They're close. You may not be able to see it, but they're actually not touching. And I'm going to now add water. I'm going to put the baking pan in the oven first, so that I don't deal with sloshing water as I put it in the oven. And then I'm going to add water. Just like any custard, it can't do direct heat. It has to have insulation of hot water. The oven is set to 300 degrees, and we're going to cook it about 20 minutes. It's really going to depend on whether or not the custard moves. It should be about 20 minutes. So water should go up about halfway up the ramekin, and even if you look at the larger one, it is halfway up. There's a probability that the larger one will come out sooner, and I'll just remove it from the rest of them. And as we get through this, I will make sure that you see what it should look like when it's done. So everybody is in there and happy. I have another little guidance thing. If you have any kind of crusty stuff on the shelves of your oven, you need to spray them with some kind of oil so it slides. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. So we're talking maybe 20 to 30 minutes. You have to pay attention around 20 minutes to see how things are going. So these are perfect. I want to say to you guys, please don't worry if some of the egg mixture ends up in the water. That's okay. My ramekins are a little deeper than some can be, like this one over here. And so you have to allow up to 50 minutes depending on the depth of your ramekins. In my case, well, most important thing, you want to get to about 175 degrees when you put the thermometer in center of the ramekin. This was probably 45 minutes. But test after 30, which is what I did. So I have my timer set for 30 minutes. Remember, the temperature was set at 300 degrees. I tested it 30 minutes, and my first thing is this sounds odd, but the slosh test, if it's still moving, not ready. Put it back in for another 10 minutes, test it again. And so ultimately I ended up with about 45 minutes just because of the depth of the ramekin I'm using. If you're using a more shallow ramekin like this one, it's not going to be as long. So I'm going to serve these tomorrow, and I will make a video for you guys to understand. But most importantly, when you're serving a creme brulee, once again, go back to your superfine sugar, your baker's sugar, and sprinkle a bit on the top. I do have a torch, but frankly, I prefer to just use the broiler in my oven. I put everything in at the same time, and I get that lovely crunchy stuff at the top. I'm going to let these cool right now, and then put them in the fridge, covered, and then I'll bring them back out when it's time to serve, and I'll make more video for that and see it a little bit later. So I realized when I reviewed the video clips to put the whole movie together that I called Strawberries Peaches, and more importantly, I've completely forgot to take video of the crusty part at the top of the creme brulee. So forgive me, but I'm not going to make a whole thing of creme brulee just to be able to show you that. Effectively, what you do is take about a teaspoon of the superfine sugar and you coat the entire top of the creme brulee. And then it can't be too thick. It's got to be very thin, just a thin layer. And then you can either use a torch or you can put it under the broiler. I usually use a broiler if I have a lot of them to do all at once. So everything comes out at the same time until it's just a little bit tiny brown, and then it's ready to serve, and they're absolutely perfect. And I hope you make them, and I hope you enjoy.